Ever get that feeling like you just want to really understand something, like really get to the bottom of it, but without drowning in a sea of details?
Yeah, totally. I know what you mean.
That's exactly what we're all about here, right? Getting to the heart of the matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
So today we're diving into a really fascinating story, and it all revolves around a single address, 625 Montgomery Avenue in Marion Station, Pennsylvania.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we've got this incredible collection of material we've pulled together, historic registers, old newspaper articles, even some info from organizations that have actually been located there.
Wow.
I know, it's pretty amazing, right? And our mission here, if you will, is to peel back the layers of history that are kind of embedded in this one spot
I like it.
and trace this incredible journey that this building has taken, starting way back as a tavern centuries ago, all the way to what it is today, which is a synagogue.
Okay, so very long history.
Yeah,
Well,
really long history, and you're going to be surprised by some of the things we found along the way, some really memorable stuff.
I'm excited to hear it.
Okay, so let's picture it back in the early 1700s, right? Our location wasn't always a synagogue, was it?
No, not at all. Back in 1704, it was actually established as a tavern, a place for travelers to rest and for locals to gather.
Okay, classic tavern.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating is that over the years, it had all these different names, like we see it referred to as the William Penn Inn, the Wayside Inn, Tunis Ordinary, and Streeper's Tavern.
Wow, so many names.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
So each name probably reflects a change in ownership or, maybe a shift in what the tavern was like.
Interesting. It's like the building had all these different lives, but with different names.
Right, exactly.
And it must have been a pretty important spot in the community even back then. I mean, it's not just any old building that makes it onto the National Register of Historic Places.
You're absolutely right about that.
So what do you think made this place stand out, even in those early days?
Well, the fact that it got added to the National Register in 1976, I think, tells us a lot. Yeah. It means that even back then, it was recognized as a landmark, a place with real historical significance.
Right.
I mean, think about it. For over 2 centuries, at that point, it had been this public house, a place where countless everyday moments happened. Maybe even some big local events went down. Who knows?
Right. Just imagine all the stories those walls could tell.
Exactly. And
Right.
these kinds of places often become like vital hubs, in developing communities.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Places where people connect.
Okay, so let's fast forward a bit, almost 100 years to be exact. We're now in 1793, and the tavern gets yet another new name, the General Wayne Inn.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Why that name change? There's got to be a reason, right?
Oh, definitely there is.
So listen.
It was renamed to honor General Anthony Wayne, who was a hero of the American Revolutionary War.
Yeah, okay.
And he was known for his bravery. Actually, he was often called Mad Anthony Wayne.
Mad Anthony Wayne? That's a pretty cool nickname.
Right, and get this, the reason they named it after him is because he had actually stayed at the inn himself at some point earlier in its history.
Wow, so it had a direct connection to this Revolutionary War hero.
Exactly, so renaming it was like a way to,
Yeah,
commemorate his connection to the place and all that he did for the country.
that's pretty cool. And it wasn't just General Wayne who stayed there, right? I mean, our research showed a pretty impressive list of names who passed through those doors.
Yeah, it really is a fascinating list.
What stands out to you about the types of people this INEO attracted?
Well, for me, it's the sheer variety of important figures who are said to have visited.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Gilbert du Motier, Marquis de Lafayette, who was a key French ally during the Revolution.
Right.
Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers.
Obviously a huge name.
Right, and it's even believed that William Penn himself, the founder of Pennsylvania, stopped by in its early days.
Wow.
And then on top of that, you've got literary giants like Edgar Allan Poe, presidents like George Washington, and then even some more contemporary names like Julius Erving, the basketball legend,
Wow.
and even the actor Dylan Jalula.
Okay, that's quite a range.
It's wild, right? It really shows how this one spot has been like a major crossroads for centuries, a place where people from all walks of life and from different time periods have all crossed paths.
Yeah, it's almost hard to wrap your head around it, all those different personalities under one roof.
I know, it's mind-blowing.
From the founding fathers to modern-day celebrities, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But the story takes a very different turn in the mid-1990s, a much darker turn.
Oh, yeah, things definitely take a dark turn.
And it's a real shift in the narrative, isn't it?
It is, for sure.
So in 1995, the General Wayne Inn is purchased by executive chef James Edwin Jim Webb and his business partner, Guy Angelo Sleo Jr.
Okay.
And this marks the beginning of a really tragic chapter in the inn's long history.
Yeah, a very tragic chapter.
Because just a little over a year later, in December 1996, Jim Webb is found murdered in his office at the inn.
Oh, wow.
It's just a horrific event that really casts a shadow over this place with such a rich past.
It's hard to believe something like that could happen there.
And the tragedy doesn't end there.
Oh, no.
A couple of months later, in February 1997, Felicia Moyse, who was a 20-year-old assistant chef at the inn and also Saleo's girlfriend, she dies by suicide.
Oh, that's awful.
And her role in the investigation that followed becomes really important.
I could see how that would be the case.
Because she was initially Saleo's alibi, right?
Yeah, that's right.
The story was that they left the inn together that night.
Right.
So how did investigators unravel that? How did they figure out what really happened?
Well, at first the story was that they both left the General Wayne at around the same time, each driving their own cars to go have dinner separately.
Okay.
But the police did a really thorough investigation, and they uncovered a much more sinister truth.
Yeah.
Forensic evidence actually linked the murder weapon directly to Saleo.
Wow.
So they were able to piece together that after leaving with Moyse, Saleo actually went back to the inn, committed the murder, and then hurried to meet up with her for their dinner.
So he used her as an alibi without her even knowing.
That's exactly it.
Wow, that's
It
chilling.
really is a chilling sequence of events.
And the motive, according to what we found, was a real betrayal driven by greed.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
So tell me about that.
Well, the authorities determined that Shaleo's main goal was to get the money from the life insurance policies.
Okay, yeah.
He and Webb had taken out these policies as part of their business partnership.
Right?
And Saleo stood to inherit a massive $650,000.
Wow.
Which would be well over $1.3 million in today's money.
That's a lot of money.
It is, and it looks like he really wanted to get his hands on that cash before Webb could go through with his plan to end their partnership.
Which probably would have meant closing the inn.
Most likely, yeah.
So basically, Moyse was caught in the middle of this horrible crime without ever realizing it.
It seems that way, yeah.
It's just devastating to think about what she must have gone through if she ever figured out what had really happened.
Yeah, that's the really tragic part of this whole story.
And in the end, even though it came at such a high price, justice was served.
Yes, it was in 2001, Guy Saleo Jr. was convicted of murdering Jim Webb, and he was sentenced to life in prison.
It's just a stark reminder that even places with such a positive history can be touched by real darkness and tragedy.
Yeah, it's a sad truth.
But this story of 625 Montgomery Avenue doesn't end there, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Because after this dark period, the General Wayne Inn starts a whole new chapter.
A completely new chapter.
And I gotta mention, during that time between the murder and what came next, the inn gets this reputation for being haunted.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Do our sources say anything about how that came about?
They do, actually.
Okay.
After the murder and all the investigations and everything, the inn kind of became infamous.
Yeah, I can see how that would happen.
And then it got featured on that TV show, Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that kind of solidified its place in local folklore, as this haunted spot.
Wow. It's interesting how tragedy can sometimes lead to those kinds of stories, right?
Yeah, it's really strange how that works.
But then in 2005, something really significant happens.
Okay, what happened?
The building is purchased and undergoes a major renovation.
Wow, a total transformation.
So tell us about this new phase.
Well, in 2005, the property is bought and renovated to become the home of Shabbat of the Main Line.
Okay.
So it's the complete shift.
Yeah.
From a historic tavern with a troubled past to a place dedicated to religious practice and community.
Wow, what a change.
Right.
For anyone who might not be familiar, can you explain a bit about what Shabbat of the Main Line is?
Sure. So Shabbat of the Main Line is an Orthodox Jewish congregation.
Okay.
And they're part of the Shabbat Lubavitch movement, which is a global Jewish movement that's known for being very welcoming and inclusive.
Okay.
They welcome all Jews, regardless of how religious they are.
That's great.
Yeah. And a big part of what Shabbat does is outreach, community building, and promoting Jewish education and awareness.
Okay, so it's about more than just religious services.
Yeah, exactly. It's about bringing people together and sharing their traditions and knowledge.
So they basically took this former inn and turned it into a synagogue, a place of worship, and a community center.
Exactly. They offer all sorts of programs, religious, educational, social, you name it.
Wow. So this building that once had travelers coming and going and then later became the scene of a murder is now a place for prayer learning and community.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing evolution, isn't it?
It really is. And we even have info about who's leading the congregation today.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Tell me about them.
So Shabbat of the Main Line is currently led by Rabbi Shraga Sherman and Rabbi Baruch Shalom Davidson.
Okay.
They're both very active and involved in the community.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, and for anyone who wants to learn more about their activities and programs, you can check out their website, chabadmainline.org.
Okay, I'll definitely have to check that out.
Yeah, it's really inspiring to see how this location has been able to adapt and transform over time.
Absolutely. So let's just take a moment to think about everything we've learned.
Okay.
We've seen this one building at 625 Montgomery Avenue go from a bustling tavern back in 1704, witnessing centuries of American history and hosting some truly incredible people, to a place marked by a shocking murder and then ultimately being reborn as a thriving center for religious and community life.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It's truly remarkable, wouldn't you say?
I would say so. It really makes you think about how one physical space can hold so many different stories and how much history is hidden within its walls.
Yeah, it's like a microcosm of history itself, different eras, different purposes, the whole spectrum of human experience.
I like that, a microcosm of history.
And it makes you wonder what stories are hidden in the buildings we see every day, right?
Yeah, totally.
Like those places we just walk by without a second thought. What could their walls tell us if they could talk?
That's a great question.
It's something to think about, isn't it?
It really is.
It's amazing how much history is all around us just waiting to be discovered.
Absolutely.
So next time you're out and about, take a closer look at those buildings you pass by. You never know what secrets they might be hiding.
Good advice.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive today. It's been fascinating.
It has been my pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring and keep those questions coming.
I will see you next time.
Take care.
You too.